हेलो। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम सलाम, वेलकम।
जी जी, वेलकम। आप ठीक है?
जी जी, we are live on YouTube. Kindly take care.
ओके।
Shakil साहब, welcome sir. Rashid साहब, welcome. Thank you. Irfan साहब, thank you. Mozam साहब,
Assalamualaikum.
thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
We are just waiting for the chief guest to join. We'll start at 3, inshallah. He's already available. Thank you.
Amir Saab, shall we start?
Just 2 minutes. I spoke to the chief conservator for us. He has requested for 2 minutes.
Fine. All others have, I think, joined.
Madam, the Chief Conservator Forest, our chief guest has joined. I think you
Okay.
can start now.
Okay, let's start. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all of you. Today, we are celebrating the International Mountain Day, which is being celebrated since 2002. It's an occasion to create a large social movement that can bring mountain issues on the table. This webinar is being conducted by Institution of Engineers State Center, Srinagar, in collaboration with J&K Forest Department and J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club, and also J&K State Emergency Operations. Am I audible? Hello?
बीच में आपका थोड़ा कट हो गया था, बाकी please continue.
Okay. I think I'll start this webinar with a couplet from Bangidara of Allama Iqbal, who says, "Eh Himala, eh fasile kishware Hindustan, चूमता है तेरी पेशानी को झुककर आसमां, तुझ में कुछ पैदा नहीं दीराने रोजी के निशान, तू जवां है गर्दिशे शामो सहर के दरमियां." Now, let me introduce my panel today. We have Engineer Amir Ali, the Chairman of Institution of Engineers State Center, Srinagar. Then we have Janab Said Farooq Ahmed Gilani, IFS Chief. Then we have, hello?
Madam, आप बीच में mute हो जाते हैं. Please take care.
Okay, then we have the keynote address by Dr. Professor Shakil Ahmed Romshu, Dean Research, University of Kashmir. Then we have Mr. Janab Nawab Muazzam Khan, mountaineer and rescuer, who will tell us about how to evolve youth in mountain ecosystem. Then we have wildlife protected areas, repositories of mountain biodiversity in Kashmir. Janab Rashid Nakash, Regional Wildlife Warden, Kashmir. Then we have a valedictory address by Janab Mahmood Ahmad Shah, KS Director, I&C Kashmir. He is also President of J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club. Then we have the participants also. Now I'll request Janab Amir Ali Saab to give a few points about.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. And I welcome you all to this webinar on International Mountain Day. And I'm grateful to the Chief Conservator of Forests, my friend Dr. Said Farooq Gilani Saab, who despite numerous programs found time for participating in this webinar and collaborating with us to ensure its success. I am extremely grateful to Dr. Shakil Ahmed Romshu साहब कि आज का दिन उनके लिए बहुत ही ज़्यादा अहमियत का होता है क्योंकि Mountain Day और Shakil Romshu साहब, they are both interrelated. So he had lots of programs this morning, but he had assured us that he will participate. And thank you, and I welcome you. I also welcome my friend Rashid Nakash Saab, the Regional Wildlife Warden, Kashmir. I also welcome the other panelist, Mr. Nawab Muazzam Khan, who is a young mountaineer, a rescuer, connected with us also. And the wonderful thing is that this young mountaineer is going to scale the Mount Everest in 2021. We wish him the very best of luck, inshallah. We will soon be joined by Mr. Mahmood Shah Saab, the Director, Industries and Commerce, who is presently in another meeting, but he has assured that he will join us pretty soon. And we are also joined by Suhail and Bilqis from Disaster Management. And I can see Wasim also from Disaster Management. I can see my friend Nadeem Qadri Saab, who's present here, and lots of other known faces. And particularly grateful to Irfan Shah Saab also, who is the Conservator Kashmir, for participating in this. So I extend my warm welcome to all of you. 11th December is observed every year as the International Mountain Day. Madam gave a very good couplet, so it is necessary that I also say one, that from the great Sufi Sheikh Nuruddin Nurani Rahmatullah, who said that "Unposh Teliel one posh." That was in the 14th century when he said that, meaning that the survival of mankind is dependent on the coexistence of forests and its biodiversity. Now, what is this biodiversity? It is all the ecosystem, species, and resources that we find in our mountains. In fact, more than 15% of the world's population lives in the mountains, including us in Jammu and Kashmir. The glaciers on these mountains provide us the drinking water that we require, the fresh water. But unfortunately, the mountains and its ecosystem are under constant threat from climate change. And I'm sure when Dr. Shakil Rumshu is here, he will definitely talk about the climate change and the overexploitation of our resources. Under the Sustainable Development Goal, under which Suhail, Bilkis, and Wasim are also working, conservation of mountains and biodiversity has been made a very, very important key factor. As these global temperatures rise, the mountain diversity is struggling to survive, unfortunately. The rising temperatures also mean, from our disaster management point of view, that our glaciers are melting at alarming rates. And this will not only affect our freshwater supply, but will also result in unseasonal floods and disasters. Now, issues that I feel are very, very important and that we need to take on board are the land use change, encroachments in our forests. A lot of work is being done by the Forest Department for removal of the encroachments, the deforestation, climate change, unsustainable farming practices, and commercial mining. Unfortunately, we have lots of stone quarries and mines which are in the forest, and even in the other urban areas where we have these stone quarries, they are a disaster. And illegal poaching of wildlife, for which we have our friend Mr. Rashid Nakash here, who is heading the wildlife side here. And we must necessarily take all measures to prevent this and reduce our carbon footprint and preserve our forests and biodiversity for the sake of our children and future generation. Today, I think I can also take an opportunity to remember all those people who have given their lives to ensure that the mountains and its biodiversity is kept alive, including Mr. Ashraf, who retired as Director General of Tourism, and scores of other mountaineers. I don't recall the name of the one or two mountaineers who lost their lives while they were trekking, and we tried our best to save them. I wish the program success, and inshallah, I'm sure the deliberations today will be very, very fruitful. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Amir Saab. Thank you very much. The theme of today's topic is mountain biodiversity. Biodiversity encompasses species and genetic resources, and mountains have many endemic varieties. Nearly 70% of the mountain land is used for grazing and provides manure that enhances soil fertility. Now, for the inaugural address, I'll request Janab Saeed Farooq Ahmed Gilani, Chief Conservator of Forests, to kindly speak a few words about today's day. Over to Farooq Saab. Farooq Saab.
Please unmute Farooq Saab. Right, good. Farooq Saab, you are unmuted now. Please carry on. आप म्यूट हो गए फिर. अभी ठीक है, अभी ठीक है. फारूक साहब, yes. Ishfa, can you check why Farooq Saab is not able to unmute?
He's already unmuted, sir.
Farooq Saab, can you hear us? गिलानी साहब आपको आवाज आ रही?
I am Khurshid Malik. I am not getting. Hello.
खुर्शीद साहब प्लीज बी ऑन स्टैंड बाय. गिलानी साहब आपको आवाज आ रही है? There is some technical issue. The Gilani Saab is not able to connect the audio. I think now he's trying. He's trying now from his mobile.
Okay.
खुर्शीद साहब, sorry I missed you. Welcome sir. आप कह रहे थे शायद आपको आवाज नहीं आ रही है, हम सबको नहीं आ रही है. We are trying to overcome this issue. Gilani Saab, we can hear you now. Although there is a lot of echo, but we can hear you.
Now you are audible. Yes, yes, thank you.
Right, so carry on.
Yes, Amir Saab, I am audible now.
Yes, sir. Please carry on, sir.
I have to start. Okay. Thank you very much. I first of all congratulate Engineer Amir Ali, Chairman, Institute of Engineering, India, J&K Center. His colleague, Madam Akib Deva, Honorary Secretary, Institute of Engineering, J&K Center, and other eminent personalities who are today present in this webinar. Dr. Shakil Romshu, Dean Research, University of Kashmir, our mountaineer friends, Nawab Mozim, Director Industries, Mahmood Ali Shah, and Regional Wildlife Warden, Rashid Nakash. It is great that today we are celebrating the International Mountain Day. As all of us know, 11 December has been kept a day for celebrating the importance of mountains all over the world, because it was found by the United Nations in that charter that the ecosystem and the services which mountains do provide to the humankind is of immense importance, keeping in view the present scenario of climate change. And this year, the theme of Mountain Day is the mountain biodiversity. Now, the biodiversity covers it all. As I am not going into the data, whether it is 27% of the area under mountains is with the forest cover. And the services which the mountains provide us are immense. That is why parallel programs are being organized by tourism sector, by sports sector, by mountaineering sector, by forest sector. Because if we go to the services provided by the mountain ecosystems, right, starting from the sense of place, spiritual, sports, tourism, recreational, health, and above all the diversity in flora and fauna, then after that, the genetic resources, which is the repository of the genetic resources which we have, and we call them the jewels of nature, towers of water towers, because the fresh water we get from the mountain ecosystems is for the survival of the humanity. So today, if we see other services also, whether it is weather formation, indicators of global change, water storage, and regulation in the natural hazards, which we are nowadays finding. Plus, the forests which are covered in these mountain ranges do provide a sink, carbon sink, as half of the carbon is sequestered in the forests on mountains, equal to the carbon which is in the atmosphere. Then coming to mineral resources, food products, natural pastures, hydropower potential. So it is such a vast subject. If we go to the importance of the mountain and the mountain biodiversity, we can't sum up in very short time. The main purpose of today's webinar and meeting of the stakeholders of the eminent personalities is only what is the challenges we are facing today in the present times, and how we should go while we plan the developmental processes, developmental projects, all the stakeholders. Forests in the mountains are under tremendous pressure because of the development, unchecked development. Degradation of forests has been rampant, and which has resulted in the climate change, which is already a fact now, whether it is recession of this receding of glaciers, or it is going down of the water table. So jointly we have to see not only the population which lives in these mountains, but the population which lives down below also. The interventions which we do in the forests in mountains do have an effect on the overall humanity, overall people living in the world. Coming back to our Indian scenario and the Jammu and Kashmir, we are lucky in Jammu and Kashmir UT. We have the beautiful forests, we have the beautiful water streams, we have beautiful glaciers, as our both Jammu and Kashmir have the mountain ranges around, be it Himalayas, Shivaliks, or Karakoram from the Ladakh side. The variety of flora fauna which is found in these mountainous ranges is immense and very, very vast. The benefits we have summed up in short. We say recreation, we say tourism, we say sports, we say other things, but I sum up it as a forester that it is the main survival of the mankind is dependent on the ecological services which are provided by the forests and the natural resources which we have in these mountainous regions. Therefore, the need of the hour is we talk, we discuss, we know the problem. It is already identified. We attend all the seminars and we listen to the eminent personalities. Data also, getting of data is not a difficulty this time. Anybody can search it on the web. But the time has come that action, it has to be, words have to be put into action by the government, by the stakeholders, and by the people. The carbon footprints have to be reduced at the individual level, and the planning has to be done at micro level and the macro level as well. Because the environment effects will show change only when we do both at macro level as well as at micro level. Few things have been done by the Department of Forest in recent past for last 1 year now. One is that people biodiversity register has been made mandatory for all the panchayats. Starting from now, we have the local bodies coming up in the UT, which enlists the all types of biodiversity which is present in an area. That will give an comprehensive reporting of the area, what we have and what we should preserve, what are our cultural values, what are our traditions, what we have to do, so that when we go for making a plan for any area, we first consult the biodiversity register of that area. It will be a unique thing. It has been started in the country, but in the J&K also we have made a headway in it. And that should be the basic Bible to show if there we have to plan anything for any area. First thing will be to see what is natural existing there, and by our any intervention, developmental intervention, whether it is going to survive or whether it is going to have any adverse effect on it, that has to be taken care of. Now rest, at present the forest department is taking care of the natural forests because of the existing laws, be it a forest conservation act or forest act. Whenever we give clearances for any developmental projects, care is taken that equally area is again rehabilitated, but that does not make much contribution to the nature. What we take, we don't give it back to the nature. So we have to rise above all those things. It has not to be small fragmented efforts by the department, by one department, by another department. It has to be a holistic approach, and we will have to devise a mechanism of developmental processes so that the minimum thrust and minimum this disturbance is made to the natural resources which we have and which the nature has bestowed to us, because we are already late. The climate change has already knocked at our doors. Natural disasters have already started coming, be it floods, be it other disasters. The forest cover has depleted over the period of time, and the pressure on the forests have been tremendous, especially in our hilly areas, the mountainous areas, which have resulted now the latest challenges in the coming years, which will be before the mankind, will be for water. If we lose our water resources, natural springs, natural water resources in the mountains, those will be very, very difficult to then get back. So I would love to listen to the experts and scientists today in this webinar. From the forest side, I am available. We can interact further. But I once again congratulate the Institute of Engineering for organizing the webinar and giving me a chance to speak in, and start the ball rolling. So because this is a very, very vast subject, so we don't go into the data and go in any specifics. We talk generally how to preserve our mountain ecosystem and how to preserve our mountain biodiversity. Thank you. From my side, this much. No.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Farooq Saab, for your kind words and the steps your department is taking to preserve the mountain biodiversity. Thank you very much. In fact, mountains are home to 15% of the world's population and host about half of the world's biodiversity. They provide the fresh water for everybody to almost half of the humanity. Their conservation is a key factor for sustainable development and is part of Goal 15 of Sustainable Development Goals. Unfortunately, mountains are under threat from climate change and overexploitation. And the next topic, I'll request Dr. Shakil Ahmed Rumshu Sahab, Dean Faculty, University of Kashmir, to kindly elaborate about the mountain biodiversity and the glacier, etc. Over to you, Dr. Rumshu Sahab.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. At the very outset, I thank the Institution of Engineers India for organizing this, webinar on a theme which is of tremendous importance to the people of the Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. And I will, briefly, just next 10 minutes, I will go to some of the ideas that I will share with you about the importance of the mountains for us in person, for our livelihood, for our very existence. As Farooq Jilani Sahab gave a very, brief about the importance of these mountains, particularly from the biodiversity, from forestry point of view. And also he said that, I think these mountains provide us a lot of services and goods. So, and we are very forceful in extracting those goods and services. But when it comes to our responsibilities, when it comes to our duties, I think there's a lot to be desired in that. So, and we always, I think the nature or the God has given us the beautiful landscape. in terms of the Himalayas. So we sit on the Himalayas. Now, if you look at this slide, that I'm sharing with you, and this is basically the 3D picture of Kashmir from the space. So if you look at it, so it is a whatever you see is, are mountains. Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh, everywhere you will see the mountains. You will see a valley here, small piece of land compared to the entire geographical area of the two union territories. So, but at the same time, if we look and rightly, when the Emperor Jahangir, had first time visited Kashmir, he said, "Agar firdos baroe zameen ast, hami asto, hami asto, hami asto." That's a very fact. But is it really? I mean, we all take pride in that we basically own one of the most beautiful landscapes on the surface of Earth. That's a fact. But at the same time, if we, look at it, because of these mountains, we face a lot of, basically the difficulties also. One of that is because of our vulnerability to disasters. Now if we look at the multi-hazard signature of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, we are vulnerable to each and every type of disaster, be it earthquakes, we saw floods, we are seeing avalanches, we are seeing day in and day out, we are seeing the landslides. And this is not something new for us, as long as this landscape is there and these disasters were also there. And probably our, forefathers used to handle these disasters in a more judicious way. They were more wiser and, better informed than we are today, looking at the way we handle it. So I will briefly, I will not go into the much on the importance of the mountains, but I will just, as Chief Conservator Saab was talking about some of the resources, but I will focus on the snow and glaciers and some, some of these disasters that, I will talk about. I think if, I don't think there should be any, disagreement. The most important resource for this Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh are the snow and glaciers, as Farooq Sahab also said about the water resources. We are sitting on the water tower of Asia. So water tower of Asia basically provides water to about 300 million people downstream. Now, this water tower, we have 12,000 glaciers in Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh, including the areas in Aksai Chin and areas across the line of control. And this is a very huge resource. We here in the Kashmir Valley or in Jammu or in Ladakh don't have the water scarcity problem. I always say, if we face the problems, if some people face the problem, it is not per se water supply problem. It's a water governance. It's a water resource management problem. When we sit on the water tower of Asia, the per capita water availability for us is highest in the South Asia and one of the highest in the world. So if we don't get it, it is not basically per se water problem, because you have to know that the waters from these mountains are irrigating 85% of the irrigated lands of our neighboring country, Pakistan. 85% of the irrigated lands are watered by the waters that emanate from these mountains. And now this is this is a very important resource, but that is secondary, that we have not been able to utilize this resource for our economic development. So that is a different discussion, different topic, but we could have harnessed this, we could have hydropower, generation here. We have not been able to harness it, for our general economic welfare. But if you look over this, Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh, our space, what you see is white, white, white. Now, if today's image you see over Kashmir or Jammu, you will see all snow and glaciers are there. And good thing for the snow is, it is not like the monsoon precipitation where it will come and go. It stays there for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and it is stored there. Now, so these glaciers are very important for us. I mean, when in 2016, World Health Organization told us that Srinagar is one of the 10 most dirty cities in the world. I mean, we felt offended. How come we are basically, we own this paradise, Firdaus, and at the same time, World Health Organization is saying that you are one of the 10 most dirty cities in the world. If you look into the, the particulate matter concentration, the average particulate matter concentration in Kashmir today will be very high, but on an average, 365 days, it is 137 micrograms per 1 cubic meter. And if you compare this with the Indian standards, Indian Bureau of Standards, that should be 100. If you compare it with the World Health Standards, it should be 60. I mean, what has happened to the, it is not that, there are natural reasons. The geomorphic setup, any valley in any part of the world, you see valleys in Europe, in America, anywhere, the particulate matter concentration during autumn and winter is always high because the valley, the geomorphic setup does not allow it to escape. That is natural part of it. But if you look into the, anthropogeny, I mean, the way we dispose of, we have grown. I think these are policy considerations. We have increased our lands, our horticulture by 2,700% if we take 1950 as the baseline. But at the same time, we have not built the capacity of the orchardists to scientifically dispose of these pruned materials. So the way you see this fog, smoke is because of the burning of these horticulture produce in that. Yeah, so this type of a scenario is very common, these days. If you see from the up in the morning from the, if you fly, so you will see this type of a haze or a smoke over the, this. And look at this. This is the particulate matter. These are the national and international standards, these green 2 lines. See, most of the time, particularly during autumn and winter, our air quality is very bad. Yeah, so briefly, I want to talk about the climate change. Climate change is basically encompassing every sector of the economy, every sphere of the human activity. Now, you look at the, the snowfall that if you ask our parents, grandparents, they will say you that during this time or in Chalaikalan, 2 feet of 1 feet of snow is very common. So we have 137 years of met history in Srinagar. Now, if you look into this, the maximum temperatures have increased, the minimum temperatures have been particularly during winter. So we get rains these days, but we don't get snow, except on the mountains. The reason is because the minimum temperatures have significantly increased, and it is going to have an impact on the glacier health. Now, if you see the glaciers in Kashmir, if you ask me, how do they, what is the stats of their health? Every year, almost we lose 1 meter of glacier depth. And in terms of the length of the glaciers, in Kashmir Valley, almost 18 to 20 meters of glacier length is lost. So the climate change, and I tell you, if you look at the climate change scenarios, how will climate change play up by end of this century? Now, if you take, there are different scenarios. We have how you grow, how the economies in the world grow. But I tell you, one of the important, areas in Kashmir is we call health resorts. Pahalgam, Gulmarg, so you will not have that type of a microclimate in any of the scenarios by end of the century. Look at these graphs I'm showing. These are the 3, this is the baseline as of today. We have this yellow. This yellow is basically these health resorts here. So any of the plausible climate change scenarios you will not have. So that means you will go to Gulmarg, you will go to Pahalgam, you will go to Sunmarg, you will have to use ACs by end of this century. So it will be just almost similar type of climate as you find in the Srinagar. Yeah, this is the, the last part of my talk. So if you look at the disaster vulnerability, you day in and day out, you feel that, we are basically, God, as I said in my opening remarks, God has given us very beautiful landscape, very beautiful, piece of land. But at the same time, it has made us highly vulnerable to many of the disasters. Here is the earthquakes. So you can see this is tectonically very active. So you have, basically the almost every day you have the seismic activity going on all over the state. And that has, historically also, we have in the past, faced several major earthquakes there. And people, as I said, our forefathers had learned how to cope up with these disasters. Now look at this, this Daji Diwari type of a structure we use to, live. our shrines, our old houses. Even if you go today to the, to Tangadar, or if you go to the Gurez area, you will find this type of Daji Diwali system is still almost 80% of the houses. Only those people who have come from, Gurez to Srinagar, worked in secretariat, they have gone back and made these, horrific structures, concrete structures there. But traditionally, you have this. So similarly, we saw 2014 floods. If Kashmir Valley is very prone to the floods. It was not even one in 100 years. In my opinion, it was one in 50 years flood. We had in mid of the 1950s and beginning of this last century, we had a similar type of flood. And we know how much, I mean, the government claims of 1 trillion rupees, damage may be exaggerated, but there was, massive loss of the property in those floods. And what was the reason? Reason was basically, the nature or the God had kept a mechanism for us. So if you look at the, wetlands and water bodies, so they are basically the, flood protection mechanisms. On left and right of Jahlim, whenever the Jahlim will, surge, will flood, it will just get into these wetlands and water bodies. And what we are doing with these wetlands and water bodies, I mean, one of the best indicator is the Waller. Look at Waller in last 100 years. So there's massive siltation of this water body. So these wetlands and water bodies that the nature had kept as a protection for the disasters, I think we have, basically destroyed that flood protection capability. And wherever in this state there is a need for infrastructure development project, you see the wetlands and water bodies are the first target. They're there. So, and also if you look at the, the urbanization that has taken place in the floodplains of the Kashmir, and, so massive urbanization that has taken since the last 50 years. I think it is, very important for us, I think the nature, the mountains provide us a lot of sustenance, provide us livelihoods, big, very picturesque landscapes, and could be used for our own economic and social development, But at the same time, we need to, basically preserve those, the features, those services, those phenomena, those processes that are associated with these mountains. Unless and until we rise to the occasion and realize the importance of these mountains, I feel that our future is going to be bleak. We are going to face a lot more and more problems. All those problems that I highlighted could be, could basically not affect our survival. I mean, every sector of the economy in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Shakil Saab. I think Madam has probably got disconnected because she's right now in Chadura. She's multitasking right now. Thank you very much. I'm extremely grateful to you. And in the meantime, I'm also extremely grateful to Mr. Mahmood Ahmed Shah Saab, Director Industries and Commerce, and the President of the J&K Mountaineering Hiking Club, who has joined us despite the fact that he had a meeting. And I'm also extremely grateful to my friend, Mr. Irfan Ali Shah Saab, IFS, Conservator Forests, who's also present in this meeting and is participating with us. I'm also grateful to Mr. Khurshid Malik Saab, former Commissioner Secretary, who is participating in this, and I'm sure we'll be able to hear a few words from you. Extremely grateful to Qazi Nazir Saab, our council member, and Zahur Saab, Administrative Officer from the Financial Commissioner's Office. Anyway, over to next, I think, since Madam is not connected, I will straight away request Mr. Nawab Mozan Khan, the young mountaineer and rescuer who has been selected to scale the Mount Everest in 2021, to please say a few words. Mozam Saab.
Thank you, Amar Saab. Well, I thank you for inviting me to speak on this occasion of International Mountain Day. And I'm extending my wishes to all the eminent personalities who have joined this session. Well, my topic today would be how to involve the youth to towards the mountains, like how to involve them into mountain conservation projects, into awareness projects and stuff. Well, I'll give you my own example, how I went into this mountaineering profession, and how I got connected with different aspects of mountain conservation, mountain awareness regarding, flora and fauna. Now, coming to it, first of all, I got connected with the club, which is presently presided over by Mr. Mahmood Ahmad Saab in 2013. Since 2013, I have been associated with this club, and uh, uh, giving my own example, since then we have done more than I would say more than 100 Sunday treks, in which the youth, the beginners who want to join, they are basically taken to the mountain and they go there. And the most important thing is what we follow there is the leave no trace policy. I mean, that is very important because a lot of people are going there. And what we are basically concentrating upon is the fact that we should follow this leave no trace policy. So whatever the dust or whatever the the pollution we are making, basically the wrappers or the stuff, we are basically trying to make sure that we don't pollute the environment in which we are going. Moreover, coming to the point that the club has also been associated with the cleanliness and sanitation drives which we have undertaken, which involve sanitation drives in and around Srinagar city, which involve the Shankaracharya Hills, the Hari Parbat Hills. In addition to that, we did sanitation drives on the Great Lake Trail, that is from the trail which connects basically Naranag to Sonmarg. We did sanitation drives on that. In addition to that, we did sanitation drives on the Baltal Trail and the Chandanwari Trail on the Amarnath Yatra. So, in addition to that, our club basically is a very, is a forefront in the awareness of birds and animals. Basically, we are into the bird photography, animal photography. Now, the photography has been a very, it has been a very important tool and a great tool in the awareness of the animal and the plant species. So our sister concern, the birds of Kashmir, have been in forefront in promoting the birds of the Kashmir. They have documented more than 200 birds in Kashmir Valley. In addition to that, our club has been forefront in the plantation drives as well. Like over the past 4 to 5 years, we have conducted sanitation drives in and around Srinagar, which involved, we did, sanitation drives in the many graveyards, in schools, and in many forest areas as well. So all in all, like I would like to say that youth can play a major role. Like all the eminent personalities who are sitting here, whether they are from forest department or whether they are department of from the university or from other departments, you need to this is my suggestion, personal suggestion, that you need to involve youth. Without that, I think whatever we are doing is kind of futile, because youth is basically the future of the society. So we need to take along youth, and it is very important that we catch them young. The schools, the colleges, the universities, that is where you should catch them. You should sensitize them about the environment, about the concerns which we are facing for the betterment of the environment, for the preservation and the conservation of the ecosystem. So yeah, that would be my message from my end. To catch them young. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Thank you very much. I think it's said that never measure the height of mountain until you reach the top. Then you will see how low it was. Now I request Janab Rashid Nakai Sahab, Regional Wildlife Warden, Srinagar, to say a few words about wildlife protected areas. Mr. Rashid Nakai Sahab.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
What they say?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Thank you very much. What is Said Farooq Ahmad Gilani Saab, Chief Executive Director, Woolur Conservation Management Authority, and Chief Conservator of Forest Kashmir. Engineer Amir Saab, Chairman, Institution of Engineers, J&K Chapter. Professor Shakil Ramshu Saab, who is Dean Research, University of Kashmir. Mr. Mahmood Ahmad Shah Saab, Director, Industries and Commerce, and also the President of J&K Mountaineering Club. Mr. Irfan Ahmad Shah Saab, Conservator of Forests. And Mr. Nawab Mozam Saab, who is mountain rescuer, and also is a mountain rescuer, yes, and esteemed viewers. On the eve of this International Mountain Day, it's a matter of great pleasure for me to participate in this webinar organized by the Institution of Engineers, J&K State Center, in collaboration with J&K Forest Department and J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club. With an aim to protect mountains, their products, resources, habitation, culture, heritage, as well as their tourism potential, United Nations Organization has designated 11th December as International Mountain Day. This day is observed worldwide with high spirits and enthusiasm by the mountain dwellers and the mountain lovers alike. Mountains loom large in Jammu and Kashmir, Kashmir's most spectacular landscapes. Mountains are large laboratories of knowledge, where species and communities which have adapted in various ways to their environment are found. Mountains also borne witness to many different ways their inhabitants have lived in harmony with them, adapting to their environment, using and manipulating the gifts of the earth, and often surviving to keep the environment as healthy as possible. Their update, topography, compressed climatic zones, and isolation have created the conditions for a wide spectrum of life forms. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me a chance and indeed an honor to talk on this occasion. As we all know, that the biodiversity is an integral part and foundation of the life on Earth. And during the recent past, there has been a growing concern about the conservation of biodiversity, particularly the ecosystem diversity in the wildlife protected areas in the country, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. Let me inform the august viewers that we in Kashmir are fortunate to have a rich tradition of conservation of mountain biodiversity. Kashmir is famous the world over for its lofty mountains, picturesque valleys, fascinating lakes, streams, and rivers, unending varieties of landscapes, lush green forests, and the rich mountain biodiversity, which make this place literally a paradise on earth. The richness of habitats and ecosystems add to the diversity of our wildlife. Biodiversity conservation became the focus of interest following United Nations Convention on Biodiversity in the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in 1992, and the CITES, Convention on Ban on Trade in Animal Articles and Trophies, in the year 1975. In Jammu and Kashmir, the protection and preservation of wildlife has been an important component in the management of natural resources. The interest in conservation is not just a sentiment, but the rediscovery of truth known to our ancient sages. Nature is beautifully balanced, and all forms of life, human, animal, and plants, are so closely interlinked that disturbance in one give rise to imbalance in others. Every little thing has its own place, its duty, and special utility. Any interlinkage disturbances create a chain reaction, which may not be visible for some time, but does affect profoundly later. Owing to the enormous diversity of habitat types, great altitudinal span, and climatic variations, Jammu and Kashmir possess a rich faunal diversity, particularly among the mammals and birds. Many of these are endemic and relatively confined to various areas of Himalayan range. This region is unique natural area with the diverse zoogeographical regions. The Northwest Himalayan region of the J&K includes temperate and subtropical areas of Kashmir and northern Jammu. Kashmir province has a predominantly temperate climate. Faunal elements showing affinities with northern Palearctic fauna as well as eastern and oriental fauna form a unique assemblage which is of immense conservation value. Many species such as markhor, Asiatic black bear, Himalayan brown bear, Kashmir red deer occur locally in this province of Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir is home to the magnificent faunal diversity and includes more than 50 species of mammals with a distinction to represent some globally threatened, critically endangered, vulnerable, and nearly threatened species as per the IUCN categorization. The rare and endangered species found in Jammu and Kashmir are hangul, snow leopard, ibex, markhor, musk deer, brown bear, western tragopan, and many more. In Kashmir region alone, wildlife protected areas like Dachigam National Park, Kazinag National Park, Limbar, Lachipura, Ovradu, and Hirpura wildlife sanctuaries. Besides, wetland reserves like Okarsar, Shalbuk, Haigam are the biggest repositories of biodiversity and gene pool and receive utmost attention for conservation through improved management plans and techniques. Also, animal rescue centers are established for wildlife education and awareness purposes. Kashmir is also famous for several of its important wetlands, which are directly linked to the livelihood requirements of the local population, apart from their ecological, biodiversity, and tourism values. These are recognized as the primary habitat of hundreds of species of waterfowl, fish, mammals, and insects. During winters, they receive large congregations of migratory birds from Siberia, Northern Europe, and Central Asia, which add to the beauty of these wetlands. However, it's rather an irony that a significant portion of this rich repository of biodiversity in Jammu and Kashmir is currently experiencing anthropogenic threats in the form of disruption of ecosystem processes, habitat destruction, species extinction, and the erosion of genetic diversity within species at an alarming rate. Further, climate change, unsustainable farming practices, commercial mining, logging, poaching, all exert a heavy toll on mountain biodiversity. In addition, land use and land cover change and natural disasters accelerate biodiversity loss and contribute to creating a fragile environment for mountain communities. Therefore, in the present era of unprecedented loss of biodiversity all over the world, the conservation of biodiversity assumes on an urgent priority. Fully conscious of the situation, government has taken series of measures for conservation of forests and wildlife thriving therein. Over a period of time, the wildlife of J&K has been managed for different objectives. In earlier times, the wildlife was managed exclusively for game purposes, and accordingly, the rules were framed to protect the wild animals in the notified game reserves and to regulate the hunting of big and small game. Over a period of the government has notified more than 4,000 square kilometers as protected area network, which is more than 11% of the total geographical area of the UT. In Kashmir alone, we have 3 national parks, 8 wildlife sanctuaries, 9 wetland conservation reserves, and 8 wildlife conservation reserves spread over an area of 2,030 square kilometers. Jammu and Kashmir.
I would request you to kindly be slightly brief, if possible.
Yes. I'm concluding.
Thank you.
Yeah. The last decade has seen enormous increase in human wild animal conflict, mainly due to the expanding human populations. Conflict mainly due to encroachment in forest lands and community lands, dissemination of forest cover, occupation of forests by various agencies, and conversion of prime habitats into cropland, orchards, and of course, in some cases into human settlements. It's indeed tragic that during last few years, many persons have died and injured in wild animal attacks. And some animals were also killed or harmed in retaliation. Such conflicts are one of the main threats to the continued survival of many species. Special attention is being made to address the man-animal conflict through better coordination between all the stakeholders. I am particularly proud of our field staff who, despite these difficulties and rather disturbed conditions in the remote areas, have been protecting the forests and wildlife, quite often working closely together with the people living in and around wildlife protected areas. Before I conclude, I would like to acknowledge the role of the institution of engineers, J&K State Center, J&K Forest Department, J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club for promoting the cause of mountain biodiversity conservation in Kashmir. Department of Wildlife Protection look forward to establish a better coordination mechanism with all such prestigious institutions for a strong and long-lasting memorandum of understanding for assisting the department in this endeavor. With these words, I do hope that the objective of organizing this webinar is fully met. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashid.
Thank you, Rashid. Am I audible? Hello? Hello? Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Hello?
you are audible.
Thank you, Rashid Sahab. Yes, you rightly said mountains are repositories of biodiversity, but mountains are under threat. Therefore, their conservation is the key factor for sustainable development. It is also necessary to educate all the people, from children up to the adults, to protect these mountains as well as forests. Now, I would request Mahmood Shah, who is KS, and he is also Director Industries and Commerce. He is also the President of J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club. I would request him to please present the valedictory session.
Thank you for making me part of this webinar. I'm sorry I had a meeting prior to this, and by virtue of which I was able to join late. So my apologies, I was not able to hear the edifying talk of Mr. Shakil Saab. In fact, it is my loss that I could not witness that presentation, maybe some other day. Since morning, we have been in various functions talking about the Mountain Day. Of course, this is one day in the year where we talk and interact with people who are directly or indirectly associated with the mountains. And there is no better place in perhaps in the whole Himalayas than Kashmir, where if 1 degree of temperature changes, you have rain instead of snow. So the effects of global warming are more pronounced in Kashmir, and we need to realize the fact that what has happened to the ecosystem. When Rashid Saab was talking about wetlands and wildlife conservation, these sanctuaries and national parks. Before that, Javed Farooq Saab also talked about forests. I have been, it has been my good fortune that I have been able to roam around the mountains of Kashmir for the last 2.5 decades. And the more I travel, the more I trek, the more I walk, the more unhappy I become to see the forests have regenerated, stopped regeneration. There's no regeneration of forest happening. The grazing is at its worst. But every blade of grass is grazed, and the wildlife is pushed to the brink of extinction. So we have very serious challenges on our hand, and we inherited a better planet from our ancestors, from our forefathers. And I shudder to think, what are we going to pass to the posterity? So right now, this is not a forum of leveling blames but it is the time to work collectively. We all are concerned about Dachigam. We all are concerned about Limbar, Lachipura. We all are concerned about Hawker Sir. We all are concerned about Haigam. Very recently, we witnessed a very unfortunate incident wherein a pair of tundra swans were shot. So this is the unfortunate scenario which has developed over the last 2-3 decades, and all of us should endeavor to ensure in our both individual as well as collective capacity to ensure that whatever we can do to improve the situation around us. We from the club side have been doing our humble bid in afforestation and in doing the sanitation drive, in ensuring the awareness is generated among the youngsters. And we also expect in this endeavor the cooperation from you all. And I have a couple of times requested Gilani Sahab also to give us a chunk of land where we could start the afforestation and we could develop it as a model. I hope we achieve a breakthrough in that context as well. So we are already running late. I request all the participants here, and I, with a special thanks to Mr. Amir Ali for making this webinar happen, and a very fruitful and interactive decision. I hope we have recorded also, and I am able to view the presentation of Shakil Saab later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I would request Mr. Khurshid Malik Saab if he wants to say a few words before we present vote of thanks. Khurshid Saab. Sorry, he is not available, I guess.
Yes. So there are a few questions which the participants have asked. The first question is for Mr. Mahmood Ahmed Shah Sahab, which is from a participant, Gauhar Jilani. He is a disaster management expert as well. So his question is, what are the possible solutions that can be looked into, keeping the fragile nature of the mountains of Jammu and Kashmir into consideration in disaster management context? So please.
Yes. I'll just answer that. When we talk about disasters, I'll go back to 2014 when the floods wreaked havoc here in Kashmir. So it was a time wherein we had to learn our lessons. Post 2014, what we did is that we started to engage with the people who are on the forefront of the adventure. So we began the training and improving the skills of those people. And by now we have trained about 500 to 600 boys and girls in swimming at Nigin. Then, whosoever is in adventure, whenever a disaster strikes, these boys and girls are the first responders. And what we did is that we are trying to groom them as the first responders, and we have done many courses to build their capacities. We have done a couple of resuscitation courses. We have done the urban, the forest, urban, the mountain, and the river rescue, so that we are able to extricate marooned people. That's what we have done. But a robust network of first responders needs to be strengthened, and Department of Disaster Management and clubs need to join hands and develop more capacities. We have seen after that, we have seen the tragedy unfold at Kolhai where 2 of the boys died, and then we launched this rescue to retrieve the bodies. This year also we had an incident on Kolhai. So disasters will happen, but we need to stay prepared, and we need to join more and more clubs together with the Department of Disaster so that a robust system is in place.
Thank you very much, sir. Another question is from Ramiz Sudan. His question is for Mr. Rashid Nakai Saab. He's saying that,
Yes.
sir, please listen to the question. He's saying, please tell us about human-animal conflict. He has read a story on Al Jazeera, over 600 people were injured during recent 1 year. Why is the number rising? And even animals are being killed. What needs to be done?
Well, I would say that he has not. It is the Al Jazeera has quoted 60 people, not 600 people. And if we see the trend of the injuries, it's less than what we have in the previous years. We have 111 injuries during 2011, and this year it's around 60 people who have been injured by way of the conflict scenario. And this is, if we see from 2006 onwards, we have the data documented in the department, and the trend is basically declining with respect to the deaths, which basically are inflicted by during the course of this human wildlife interface and conflict. The death rate is going down. The trend is down. Also, with regard to the injuries this year, it's not on rise. I would clearly make a mention of this thing. It's 60, not 600 people. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being a part of it. With this, we'd like to present a vote of thanks so that we conclude this program right here.
Bilkis, just 1 second
Yes,
for an intervention. May I request Irfan Saab if he wants to say anything, Conservator Forest. After that, you may present the vote of thanks. Thank you. Please unmute Irfan Saab. Is he connected?
Yes, sir. He is connected, but yes, sir.
Thank you, Irfan Saab. If you would like to say a few words before we conclude. Yes, you're audible now.
I'm audible?
Yes, please carry on.
Okay. Well, very good afternoon to all. It's really a pleasure to participate in Amir Saab's programs, whether it is in online mode or whether it's in offline modes. And as we know, that mountains, they are the water towers of the earth, and they support, of course, a lot of biodiversity on them, with which primarily we are concerned as foresters and as Rashid Naqash Saab was saying, in the protected areas, including the wildlife sanctuaries and the conservation reserves. And mountains, of course, matter because of the disaster risk reduction issues, because the climatic variations in the mountains often has triggered disasters, as we saw in 2014 in Kashmir. And as Romchu Saab also said in his speech. And mountains, of course, if we see, Mahmood Saab is with us. So we see that globally, if we see various tourism reports, which even very recently also the report came regarding the tourism vis-a-vis the COVID, that 15 to 20% of the global tourism is in the mountainous areas only. So they support tourism, and of course then they support economy, and even locally also they support the local economies and the local livelihoods also. So mountains got a role to play. Then certainly mountains are the repositories of our food. We get various types of food, forest-based foods, then agro-biodiversity that is there, even the medicinal and the aromatic plant industry that is totally dependent upon the mountain ecosystems. And now most important, post reorganization in J&K, there came an act now which is to be implemented, and that is the Forest Rights Act. Today in the forenoon, we had an orientation training with Commissioner Secretary Forests in chair, and we had Director Tribal Affairs with us, and we had Secretary Tribal Affairs also regarding the Forest Rights Act. Because this is primarily dealing with the communities and the tribal cultures which thrive in our mountains, which thrive in our mountain ecosystems. So recognition of their rights, giving due, recognition to their rights and to their bona fide needs, that is there. So, we will be working with these communities who, of course, have been at the forefront as regards the conservation of these mountains and the mountain ecosystems. And so, in nutshell, if you name anything, or if you talk of any ecological service, it always flows from the mountains. So that's why we are celebrating these mountain days. So I think the organization of this webinar will surely go a long way in opening up our new vistas of knowledge and wisdom as regards our understanding of the mountain ecosystems. And I also congratulate Mr. Amir Ali Saab, Director Disaster Management, for organizing this wonderful program. I congratulate my Chief Conservator, Sir Gilani Saab, who is the chief guest also here, for doing a wonderful role as far as the protection of mountain ecosystems is concerned. His Chief Executive Officer, Wuller Authority also, which is a wetland of international importance. His efforts there are also being recognized and appreciated in all the forums. Thank you all. God bless us and God bless our mountains. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It was really enlightened. Now I would request Ms. Bilkis to present the vote of thanks.
It's my privilege to be the part of this program, and the takeaways of today's discussions are very much important for the preservation of mountains and its biodiversity. And yes, youth has a greater responsibility to conserve the beautiful blessing from the Almighty and the biodiversity associated with the mountains. On behalf of Institute of Engineers, J&K State Center, Jammu and Kashmir Forest Department, J&K Mountaineering and Hiking Club, and Jammu and Kashmir State Emergency Operations Center, Srinagar. I thank you today's chief guest, Janab Syed Farooq Ahmad Gilani Sahab, Chief Conservator Forest Kashmir, who spared his valuable time for this program and really make this program a worthy one. Thank you, sir, so much for being a part of this program. I thank all the speakers who actually gave us their valuable presentations and enlightened us with their knowledge about this special day. I thank you, Janab, Professor Shakil Ahmad Ramchu Saab, who is Dean Research University of Kashmir. He has always been a supportive person in terms of providing the resource and the knowledge about different aspects of environmental sciences and geology and other related subjects. I thank you, Janab Nawab Muazzam Khan, who already Sir has said that he is going to be our representative from Jammu and Kashmir, maybe from India, to scale Mount Everest in 2020. I thank him for being a part of this program. I thank you, Janab Rashid Nakash Sahab, Regional Wildlife Warden, Kashmir. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this program. I extend my thanks to Janab Mahmood Ahmad Shah, who is Director INC Kashmir and President J&K Mountaineering Club. I also thank you, Janab Zohor Ahmad Diwani Sahab, who is an Administrative Officer from Financial Commissioner Revenues Office. He has always been a support to us. I thank you all the participants in this program who has been patiently hearing all of us and who has been a very, making this session a very interesting one by asking their questions and giving their observations regarding various things. I also thank you, Janab Irfan Ali Sahab, who is Conservator Forests. Last but not least, I extend my thanks to Miss Honorary Secretary to IEI Engineer Akif Sultana, who always provides her support in order to conduct any kind of a program. I'm also very much thankful, and words may fail to express this gratitude of being a student of Engineer Amir Ali Sahab, who has always been a mentor and who's always taking the lead in organizing the programs. Such kind of programs and actually teaching us to be better for the future generations. I also thank you, Mr. Ishfaq Ahmad Dar, who is always there at the back end and giving us full technical support. And I also extend my thanks to Mr. Wasim Shafi, who is our senior consultant at disaster management, and he has been a part of our program. Thank you so much. And yes, I should not forget it that I also thank you, Mr. Gahar Jilani, who is a disaster management expert and never fails to be a part of our program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You may disconnect. Thank you. All the best.
Good evening, everybody.